Welcome to CIRF number 467. This is for August 28th through September 3rd, 2025. Excuse me. A little bit of congestion today, but we are headed into the eclipse continuum is opening. We're headed towards the eclipses. The eclipses aren't happening this week, but we're getting ready for them because there's some changes and some energetic shifts that are happening in Virgo and Pisces that are priming the pump for both eclipses. One in Pisces, one in Virgo. All right. So we start off with our best comment award. Shout out to CJ Star Monkey. If just being is hard for some of you, play around with some stuff. Distract your brain with fun or creativity. And that is absolute. I mean, shout out because you won the award, but it is a premonition into one of our solutions this week. Is you may end up, excuse me, feeling a little confused, or hard to just be in the flow. One of those, CJ Star Monkey says, is distract your brain with fun or creativity. But I'm also going to add in there that we need to just move. And move will not only move your circulation, but start moving the mind, get you unstuck from whatever the confusion might be causing your stuckness. All right. Should I do the big picture first? There's your big picture. Oh, well, yeah, that's not very good. How about this? Doop. There's your big picture, and you can get this playbook on Telegram. Links down below in the show notes. Now I'm zooming in on the wrong one. There is the influence in its triangulation. So the biggest energy of any particular chart generally is the sun. Sun is in Virgo, so service-oriented, perfectionism, groundedness. Very conscientious, modesty's in there, simplicity, and obligation, perhaps. But then we have the first quarter moon. First quarter moon energetically is a square between sun and moon, and it is early in the cycle, so it is starting to get up and go, get up and move. And along with that, so synergistically, we have the grand fire trine on one day because the moon is part of it. And then we have Mercury entering Virgo and Saturn. We go into the background here because Saturn's a little further away planet, less influence. Saturn returns, or more subtle influence. Saturn returns to Pisces in a retrograde this week. So we have two planets going into the continuum of the eclipse cycle, their signs. So Pisces and Virgo gets lit up. And that continuum gets pretty strong heading into our two eclipses. The I-Ching says number 9, which is the small influences. And so energetically, it feels sort of both. It feels hopeful, but yet restrained, determined, need to be quiet. That kind of sings that Virgo nature, because now remember, by the end of the week we have not only sun, but we also have Mercury in Virgo, and Mercury is going to square Uranus. So there's changes, and there's like an internal conflict, sort of confusion. So you feel like you want to go and determined, but it's held back because it's sort of confusing about maybe change or the insights, or there's definitely that motivation to go, but the direction, it questions itself. As far as the yin yang meter, I've got it slightly into the yang, but probably less yanginess that we would have on most first quarter moons, even with the grand fire trine. And that's because of the grounded nature, the practicality, but also the square over to Uranus. Let's go ahead and get started. And it always bounces away, doesn't it? There's our eclipse cycle. So this is it. Pretty much it of our Aries ruled 6 months. And then we're going to finalize with the lunar eclipse in Pisces at the full moon. On our next CIRF report, we'll have the lunar eclipse. And this is kind of the grand finale, the whatever developed, or, like how when you grow, you tend to have this byproduct of maybe some toxins. So it's like severing those toxins, the unwanted part of your progress, and eliminating those, giving those up to the full moon eclipse, right? And get you prepared for the Virgo eclipse cycle on September 21st. All right, we are shifting months, so of note, so we're on the right side of this vertical line as we head into the last remaining days of August. This red here is the conjunction between Saturn and Uranus. And one of those, Saturn, is going to go into Pisces while Neptune remains in Aries, but it's going to stay in a conjunction for quite some time. Two slower planets kind of dancing with each other. We've had our new moon, full moons, and we're getting ready. It's really pretty quiet until we get into September. So September rolls over, and then all of a sudden the fun begins. Saturn retrogrades back into Pisces. We'll look at that in detail. Now we're on the left side of this vertical line. We have the conjunction between Saturn and Neptune still, and then we have Mercury going into Virgo. So we have one planet going to Pisces, one planet going into Virgo. This unlocks the continuum of the eclipse and the channel. But if we look further down, September, a lot of magical things happening. The full moon lunar eclipse is happening next CIRF report. Then 2 weeks later, we'll be in the solar eclipse. That's the second new moon in Virgo. And then some interesting things happen. And I posted this on Telegram last night as looking into this eclipse season. You have five if you include the moon, because moon and sun make the new moon. And so moon will be coming over to Libra. And then almost immediately the sun will also go into Libra. So change of sign there, 2 planets. But just before that, Mercury goes into Libra. Venus switches over to Virgo, and Mars goes into Scorpio. So 5 planets all switching signs in a matter of just a few days, and the new moon lunar eclipse. And there's a grand trine, that is very tight grand trine, so grand air trine. Unusual tightness of that grand trine. So anyway, interesting period around that third week in September, I'll tell you. But let's get into this week, Thursday the 28th. We start off with Neptune sextiling Uranus. That goes exact at 7:14 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Sextiles denote opportunity. So we have innovative, unconventional, potentially spiritual pursuits, heightened intuition, certainly with the sextile on Neptune and Aries. And that is going to be towards the ideal self, increased attraction to cutting-edge technologies. That's obviously the Uranus, openness to new unorthodox belief systems. Imagine a spiritual warrior with cutting-edge technology, or a futuristic shaman blending ancient wisdom with modern advancements. And with this energy, this sextile is a tendency to challenge traditional religious or spiritual authorities, and a potential for sudden changes and shifts in spiritual paths or beliefs. Now, one more question that we need to be asking is this tight trine between Uranus and Pluto, because they are in a pretty tight trine. With their orb is within 30 minutes or a half a degree. So it begs the question, when do they actually go exact trine? Well, the answer is July 17th, 2026. because Uranus will go retrograde, and they'll, I believe, stay in this trine the entire time, go retrograde back into Taurus, and then, Pluto will go direct and maybe another retrograde in there. Anyway, July 17th, 2026. So long trine period and a very extended period there as transformation and change connect on easy energy back and forth. And making changes without much energetic awareness and more subtle tones underneath, but for a long time. And then what's developing today, there are about 3 degrees of orb, is a square between Mars and Jupiter, Jupiter being in Cancer. And it is akin to being a person offering an overly generous feast to family and friends, but to the point of exhaustion. Let me clear my throat. All right, you can see this picture here. She's just exhausted, but doing a really good job at doing her best. So the undertones of the energy between this, and this goes exact later into, I believe, next CIRF report, but it's a conflict between assertiveness with Mars and diplomacy and relationships with Jupiter. It's difficulty in setting healthy boundaries, especially with loved ones, because you have Jupiter that over cares or over accentuates, exaggerated the Cancer nurturing and caring. So it's an over caring tendency. So therefore we have a potential for passive aggressive behavior. We might have difficulty with true emotional authenticity, and we might even have some emotional manipulation going on. Feeling torn between asserting yourself and maintaining harmony, and avoiding confrontation or direct communication out of fear of conflict. So that's how you would have a person to the point of exhaustion and then starts to kind of resent the family for not pitching in. But meanwhile, nobody knows the difference. Just you suffering underneath if you don't have good boundaries and emotional awareness. All right, on Saturday, we have a brief, this is the 30th of August, we have a grand fire trine. One of those points is the moon, and the moon here is approaching a first quarter moon. And so this point is exaggerated. It's in Sagittarius, first quarter moon energy on a grand fire trine. It's accentuated. And if you think of a bell curve of energy, it's going to be going up. Just the yang, the boldness, the passion, creativity, confidence goes up. Maybe impulsiveness, maybe short-tempered, especially after this square starts. Now we might explode accidentally, so just watch out for this energy on Saturday the 30th. If you're aware of it, you can really channel it into something healthy. And then on the 31st, we have on Sunday the first quarter moon in Sagittarius. Let's still get up and go. Still a waning grand fire trine. But then by Monday, it sort of starts to the leaves are falling down again and starts to settle into our continuum. So Saturn is back into Pisces. This is at 29 degrees, 59 minutes of Pisces. And this is the only gripe I have with the software. I can't get this to change appropriately. You can see the symbol is Pisces, but it's still red as if it's in Aries still. So it doesn't switch the colors until the 0.9, I think, goes away. Whatever. Saturn is in Pisces as of 3:12 a.m. on Monday the 1st. And this is our picture. It's duty to help. And it's not really this guy per se. It's more the energy is over here. It's this wanting to give, to self-sacrifice, to help. And in doing so, with Saturn, we're going to be learning something, maybe learning some difficult lessons Learning healthy boundaries are important to having healthy relationships. Structure might be developing in spirituality and intuition, increase in duties towards caregiving, empathizing, but daydreaming about escapism all the while. You might feel deeply introspective and reflective during this time, might see a little more like an uptick in pessimism as problems, particularly problems that are essential for your soul growth, are gonna be there, particularly when they have to do with the Pisces energy. Yearning for spiritual connection and meaning, and a time for our self-reflection. And that's not really the lunar cycle. The lunar cycle is, hey, get up and go, let's go. But Saturn over there quietly is asking you to reflect. And that's why you have this, I think the I-Ching 9, we'll get into that a little bit later, but is really conflicted. And that's why you have ample justification for yang, get up and go, and motivation. But you're starting to get some of this Pisces-Virgo, conflict. But the continuum, that's the point. The continuum of the eclipses are opening. Get you ready. It's steering you towards the eclipse continuum. All right, here's when Virgo, so this is a day later, on the 2nd of September, Mercury goes into Virgo. So all the Virgo stuff that we talked about for the sun is heightened attention to detail, more organization, increased analytical skills, problem solving. It's the mental version of the sun in Virgo. The mental version, enhanced ability to critique and refine, increased efficiency, productivity, especially in daily tasks, service, heightened awareness of patterns, of systems and processes, much more practical. But the point here, remember, is that it starts this continuum between Pisces and Virgo. Okay, so we round out our week with Wednesday the 3rd. Mercury squares Mars. Mercury in Virgo, Uranus in Gemini. Pressure towards unconventional thought patterns. You can get sudden insights. Whenever you have Mercury square Uranus, it's the inventor, because it's mentally insightful. It's inventions. It's coming from mind, perceptions, especially now as you have mental aptitude to find the problem and looking for the patterns that are out of whack and getting them into homeostasis is the discerning Mercury in Virgo, in its domicile, Virgo. So imagine a lightning bolt striking a meticulously organized filing cabinet, or maybe a mad scientist with a laboratory filled with all those weird diagrams. And those are the insights that potentially captivate the invention or inspire opportunities, mental ideas. Brilliant inspiration, eager to solve complex problems, driven by curiosity. Mercury square Uranus. And here is the I-Ching says 9, but with change line 6. So you feel a mix of frustration and anticipation as you sense the larger progress is sort of just out of reach. There's this growing tension will arise. I think that's mainly the first quarter moon. It's the tension that wants to go as your efforts to maintain control and focus seem to yield only modest results. Modest is a very key Virgo word. However, you will also feel a quiet confidence and readiness, knowing that the storm is clearing and greater opportunities are approaching. Are hoping that you also feel relief and renewed optimism. All right, so let's go to the summary. Oh, did we cover all these? We didn't cover the Neptune sextile Uranus, which is the mini grand trine is what we didn't cover. We did cover the Neptune sextile Uranus. But this is about the creating the ideal self over a long period of time. Ideal self, and especially as Saturn returns to Pisces. Now, it's not just becoming the best version of you. It's becoming the best version of you that the collective needs. So the collective is the important aspect here because Saturn goes into Pisces. This week, let's see here. This week, the collective begins shifting focus to the Virgo-Pisces continuum in preparation for the upcoming eclipses. Saturn quietly returns to Pisces, while Mercury, under the pressure of a tense square with Uranus, retreats to his Virgo domicile. Expect rebellious ideas and changes in communication styles due to its square to Uranus. The first quarter moon stirs eagerness and motivation, amplifying the transformative synergy of the mini grand trine connecting Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. Look at all that change, transformation. With the sun in Virgo bringing a grounded, practical energy, it's fitting that the I-Ching 9, small influences, serves as this week's guiding theme. Transformation lies in subtle, deliberate actions. All right, time now to get to the solution. And we're going to triangulate with I-Ching 5, Rave Mandala 29-6, Sidereal Leo, and the first quarter moon, and get you some basic behaviors. But I want to give you the background. So we got to put that change in. We get the yin on top. Got the yin on top, and we get Sidereal. I-Ching 5, patience. So we feel patient and trust in the natural time. No, I'm sorry, this is not feeling. Now we're getting behaviors from this. So exhibit patience and trust in the natural timing of events. So even if you feel conflicted from, as evidenced by the I-Ching 9, sort of conflicted in a way. So exhibit patience and trust in the natural timing of events. Behave with calm restraint. By maintaining faith and composure, you focus on cultivating resources, strengthening your position, and aligning with underlying currents. Surfing, that's the whole concept of surfing, right? That's what these surf reports are meant to do, to help you surf the waves so that you're not fighting against the tides. All right, here's our conversion chart, and the main influence this week is Saturn going into Virgo. So we plot that. It puts us into Rave Mandala from the Human Design, gate number 29, and it gives us Sidereal Leo. That is where we get more of our behavioral recommendations. Let's start with Rave Mandala, gate 29. It's based on the I-Ching, but this is in Human Design. And this is important because Mercury is going to unlock this week. So the gate is 29. It's called the Abysmal, and it says the deep within the deep, persistence despite difficulties has its inevitable rewards. So we got the influence in here. It recognizes the influence, which is the despite the difficulties. Persistence has its inevitable rewards. So keep going. That's the point of this. It's to dissolve artificial boundaries or boundaries or hurdles that prevent genuine connection and intimacy, creating pathways for deeper union between people, ideas, or systems. It's about getting rid of resistances and pushing through those. This gate 29 in Human Design is located in the sacral center, so you can go look if you're defined or undefined, but it doesn't matter. This, for everyone, this gate line will unlock, especially on September 2nd. when Mercury goes into Virgo. So line 6 is confusion, the state that exists when momentum outstrips awareness. The short title to this line would be the barrier spotter, because let me read. The increment is ruled by Mars, driving blind and given Mars energy and determination, often blind luck. The power to persevere that makes no sense. So imagine keeping going. You can almost feel the criticism from people around you who you're watching, but you have the courage to keep going, and then it just works out. Blind luck. But on the decrement side, Jupiter, a tendency to in confusion to withdraw rather than accept the condition and continue to persevere. The power in confusion to caution rather than saying yes. So the goal of this line is to develop foresight that allows you to address potential obstacles before they become insurmountable. Creating space for connection before separation can take root. And this can be for the people around you or the loved ones in your life, but also to your projects, to your goals, married to your goal, and eliminating anything that might get in the way there. Themes that are apparent in this line are anticipation and foresight, strategic timing, recognizing patterns before they fully become manifest, new beginnings, decision making, cutting your losses. The potentials of this line are the ability to see problems before others do, proactive rather than reactive approach to barriers, creating fertile ground for new connections, and preventing unnecessary separation is also a potential. So let's talk about how to balance this line, because Mercury going into Virgo will unlock this rave continuum. So let's do it wisely. So the increment ruled by Mars needs to be invoked when forward movement is essential, despite incomplete understanding. Mars embodies raw, driving energy, courage, and forceful determination. Perfectly aligned with this increment, as it provides audacious power to charge forward when others would halt. It's basically trusting your capacity to handle whatever emerges. That's why it's ruled by Mars. On the decrement side, this is ruled by Jupiter, and it should be invoked when expansion needs prudent boundaries. In other words, Jupiter governs wisdom and growth, optimistic expansion. This is ideal for the decrement as it represents the wise pull towards caution. It's wise to, question the continuance. But in doing so, as you're questioning, you stop doing. And so the knowing when to say yes would lead to overextension rather than true opportunity. So this is like cutting your losses, wisdom. So how do we balance that all together? We know the downside of just going too far, going with Mars and just getting it done. You might turn around and go, or maybe you cut a corner. Maybe maybe by the time you finish it, the assumptions have all changed, and so it's an irrelevant achievement. Whereas if you could have tapped into the Jupiter decrement side, you would have realized that cutting your losses would have been better at this time. Or not. Not every time is cutting it off and stopping. So here's some practical ideas in order to balance this line. The picture is this ship captain who's in stormy seas, choppy seas, can't see anything. It's real foggy, so it's really confusing about where to go. That ship is also following, so it's dicey. So here's some practical things you can do if you find yourself in this continuum this week. Is create a personal confusion protocol. So it's before the confusion starts, it's predetermined guidelines for when to push through versus when to pause. And that's going to be dependent on what project you're on or what relationship you're in. Practice meditation focused on being comfortable with not knowing. develop a rhythm of alternating Mars-like action with Jupiter-like reflections, like regular reflections. So that could be small breaks in between. So maybe it's just a pee break. So you go in, you don't just get on your phone, you're also reflecting on the progress that you made. Is it worth going? Is there any unforeseen boundaries that are developing or hurdles that you need to cross? Set boundaries on how long you'll persist before reassessing. That's a key one. Cultivating trusted advisors. Get advice. And then use physical movement when mentally stuck to activate different ways of knowing. I love that one. I have that one as a foot stomper. I'm going to use it in the summary, which we're going there now. All right, so we covered the I-Ching 5, we covered the Rave Mandala. Now let's integrate first quarter moon and Sidereal Leo. Basically, it's time to move forward, move out, get started, initiate. That's the first quarter moon, and very Leo as well. However, take it slower than normal because that's incorporating the I-Ching and the abysmal, the Rave. So take it slower than normal, pay attention generally, but especially to potential blocks. Number 2, Sidereal Leo implies that you shouldn't keep your heightened awareness or your forward movement in secrecy. It is beneficial to be seen in both initiating but also questioning continuance. That whole process, that latter process, questioning the continuance, is the Rave Mandala. Your dramatic holdup or your dramatic reluctance or questioning of confusion is not just for you, but others can benefit too. That's what I'm taking away from the Sidereal Leo. So don't hide your shift of actions or hide your reasons for slowdowns or questioning. Do it more dramatically in a way that can benefit others by just simply witnessing it. Number 3, if or when things get too mentally confusing, just move. It doesn't have to be productive moving. It doesn't mean that you have to be doing something or achieving something. If you're mentally stuck, or if you're emotionally stuck, or if you're physically stuck, just move. In other words, like get up, put your tennis or your walking shoes on and go for a walk. Just go for a walk or do some push-ups or do some yoga stretches or something, but just move. And what that does is breaks getting stuck in ideas, getting stuck in confusing thoughts, pros and cons, rational, yeah, but on the one hand, this, cognitive dissonance. If you're falling into that, just move. Take a break and move. And that will also unstuck you, hopefully. As far as social goes, the first 2 seem to be much more introverted assessments. The first quarter moon is probably more extroverted, and Sidereal Leo is more extroverted. So we're pretty even. It's not dictating that you have to be more social or not. But there you go. It's about even. It's not obvious to be social or introverted, so be balanced in that regard. And other than that, that's all I have. Thanks for being here, everybody. We have some eclipse coming up in the next CIRF report, so pay attention and get ready for the Pisces-Virgo continuum. It's unlocking this week. And so lots of change and transformation coming up in the month of September. Whoop, whoop. All right, we will see you on Wednesday for a Dreambot report, live astrology, live reading. So make sure you stay tuned. Namaste, everybody. Thank you for being here. Cheers.